Another big thing that happened since we last talked to you is that the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed through the Senate with a pretty astonishing number of supporters. It passed through the Senate 69-30. So there were 19 Republicans that voted along with all of the Democrats to pass this thing through. I think we have a tear sheet from CNN to that effect. So $1.2 trillion bipartisan package. Now, sometimes you'll see different numbers. So it says down there at the bottom, in total, deal includes $550 billion in new investments. The rest of the money is money that was sort of like already sitting there. Just a reminder, we've gone over this before, but it's $110 billion in roads, bridges, and major projects, $66 billion in passenger and freight rail, $65 billion in the electric grid, $65 billion in internet access, broadband internet access. I'm personally very happy about that one. $39 billion to modernize and expand transit systems, $7.5 billion to build a national network of charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. Also $55 billion for water infrastructure, including money to replace lead pipes, which the fact that this hasn't happened already and that we required any sort of negotiation to get that done is astonishing. But anyway, that's where we are. The other thing that's interesting here is, we brought you, Trump really came out hard against this package because he realized that this was something he tried to do and failed to do. During when he didn't, and he's showing like Democrats and Republicans working together because they're all obsessed with that idea. He sees this as damaging to his prospects if he wants to run for president again. So he called this the Green New Deal and made all sorts of like insane accusations, et cetera, and told Republicans to vote against it and didn't even come close to keeping the Republican Party in line with him. Mitch McConnell went so far as, and we have a tear sheet for this as well, as praising Joe Biden for his role here. He says, McConnell said, there's nothing to back you up like the promise of a presidential signatory if you're in the same party as the president. And so I think the president deserves a lot of credit for getting the Democrats open to reaching a bipartisan agreement on this bill. He also said, infrastructure is popular with both Republicans and Democrats, true statement. And he said the American people divided sent us a 50-50 Senate and a narrowly divided House. I don't think the message from that was do absolutely nothing. And if you're going to find an area of potential agreement, I can't think of a better one than infrastructure, which is desperately needed. What do you make of all this, Kyle?
So there's a few things here that I think are absolutely fascinating. Like you said, the vote was 69-30, which is absolutely overwhelming. Not in a million years would I have predicted that you could get a vote that much in Biden's favor.
Yeah.
So just to give everybody an idea of how weird this really is, let me give you some of the names. So we have Susan Collins of Maine is in favor of it. That's not crazy. She's viewed as probably the most moderate of the Republican senators. But then you have Lindsey Graham, who's not anybody's moderate. You have Chuck Grassley, who is super conservative. Mitch McConnell, who's the Grim Reaper himself and who only represents corporations. It's amazing. Lisa Murkowski, again, one of the moderates. Rob Portman, Mitt Romney, Thurston Howell III himself. Tom Tillis, who's a hardcore right-winger from North Carolina. So, listen, I'm speculating now, but I'm curious your thoughts on this as well. The question is, how was Biden able to make this happen? And my best guess is he really is an old school backslapping politician where he makes those personal connections, he calls them into his office. Now, he doesn't necessarily do the carrot or stick approach, but he might just do the carrot approach. And my guess is he said to these various senators, what do you want? Tell me whatever you want, and I'm going to try to deliver on it in this bill. If you want, investment in your state in a particular industry, we're going to do our best to get it in this bill. I want to give you the opportunity for when you run for re-election, you can say, Tom Tillis, to the people of North Carolina, I got X, Y, and Z. I got X number of millions of dollars in investment in my state. And they don't even have to say, they don't even have to tie it to the infrastructure bill. They could just tell their people, don't you see all the investment I got in my state?
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably what happened. You had another theory, though, about...
So...
Go ahead, I'll let you tell
I think in my estimation, there are three factors here. Number one is it's a corporate-friendly bill. Corporations want infrastructure. You know, if you think about Amazon or other big delivery service, they need roads and bridges and good airports and good broadband in order to conduct business. So business was dramatically in favor of this infrastructure package. So they didn't have to get crosswise with the donor class. They laid out very early on, we're not going to raise taxes on corporations. So, I mean, the pay-fors are a bunch of like smoke and mirrors and gimmicks, basically, which fine, whatever. I don't think you should have to pay for infrastructure anyway.
Don't they say they'll do a little bit of tax raising? Sorry to interject. Didn't Manchin say don't go over a certain amount, but they are going to raise it a little bit?
That's on reconciliation.
Okay, that's on reconciliation.
So in the infrastructure, the Republicans said we're not doing anything to change the Trump corporate tax cuts. So raising taxes on the wealthy, raising taxes on corporations for this piece was off the table. So again, fine with their corporate donors. In fact, their corporate donors wanted them to do this. So that's one reason. Another reason is I think that, it's oftentimes, I think we discount in politics how much just normal human dynamics play a part.
Right.
And Joe Biden knows a lot of those guys, Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, like he's known these dudes forever. So there is a level of a rapport and a level of trust there that I do think ultimately makes a difference. And he is the quintessential
insider. That's right.
Old school insider, backslapping Paul, something that was very different from Obama, didn't like to do any of that, and actually looked down on Biden for being that sort of old school type of relational politician. So I do think that helped. And then the other thing that I think here, though, and this is the kind of like the cynical take, but I don't think it's wrong to be cynical where any of these people are concerned, and certainly where the Republican Party is concerned, is their ultimate goal is to block the larger $3.5 trillion package that Bernie Sanders has been negotiating that actually has a lot more to like about it and a lot more important programs in it. And they're hoping, not without some merit, that the fact that the moderates got their deal, the Manchin and Sinema and the others who were really obsessed with this like bipartisan infrastructure fetish, since they got their thing, they'll be now less willing to go along with the $3.5 trillion, which is why, people like myself and you and Bernie and others on the left always thought like, we got to tie these things together so we can make sure we bring the moderates along. And lo and behold, the strategy that has been articulated to make sure that these two things do sort of stay tied together so that the progressives get what they want and the centrists or corporatists get what they want as well, is the House is planning to wait to pass the infrastructure bill until they do the budget reconciliation, the $3.5 trillion. 6 moderates, is being reported this morning, are saying effectively, like, we're not going to vote for that Bernie's $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation thing until we get the infrastructure package passed. So it does. Now, are they actually going to follow through on that? We'll see. But I think that was the other calculation from the Republicans, is basically like, if we do it this way and if we work with them on this infrastructure package, then it's going to pull the moderates away and they're not going to want to vote for the $3.5 trillion. The last thing that I'll throw out here too is I think Manchin articulated this. You're the one who flagged this for me. Manchin articulated that, like, listen, you got to do something with this or else they are going to get rid of the filibuster and then you'll be hosed. And so that was also a little bit of leverage that was used here.
That's exactly right. So I think you may have a point there that the idea is make it such an overwhelming victory on the bipartisan bill that there's a lot of pressure that goes hand in hand with that on the House Democrats, particularly the ones who are holding out and saying, no, it's both or it's nothing. So really, we are maybe looking at a game of chicken here a little bit, which is absolutely fascinating. As a general rule, you don't bet on the lefties to win that game of chicken, but,
Nor do you bet on Nancy Pelosi to hold the line.
Right,
which is
exactly.
what we're counting on right now.
Honestly,
this green dream or whatever.
I'm surprised she even initially said it's both bills or it's nothing. Pleasant surprise, but I was surprised. A couple more facts here real quick. There was a report released all the way back in 2017, and they said simply to update our infrastructure, it would take $4.7 trillion of investment. So even though this is a good bill, even though I would vote it if you get both of the bills, vote for it if you got both of the bills, just want everybody to understand it is wildly inadequate given the scale of what we're facing.
To say that.
And then I also want to say, of the Republicans who opposed it, they presented probably the least convincing argument I've ever heard in my life. They said, oh my God, this is going to add about $250 billion to the deficit.
Oh, please.
Now, mind you, I was going to say virtually all of them, but I think it might actually be all of them voted for the 2017 Trump tax cut bill, where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%, and that added over a decade nearly $2 trillion to the deficit. So, I mean, it's just, I almost like, give me a better lie. Give me a better silly line as to why you oppose this. Because that is just a slap in the face and an insult to our intelligence.
Well, and the other silly line that they gave that we covered the other day was like, this is Joe Biden's radical left woke agenda.
Woke, right, exactly.
Like, wait, how?
Woke bridges.
The real irony here, too, is that then the Republicans added a bunch of culture war amendments.
Right, that's true.
To it about defund the police and about critical race theory. So, like, that stuff wasn't in the bill, but then the Republicans were like, this is too woke. So, it's literally just roads and bridges, guys. It's not some woke agenda, but they had to layer in the culture war themselves.
And by the way, the vote was 99-0 against defunding the police and for increasing funding for the police.
Yeah.
So, wait, but now flip it right back on them. So all the Republicans who said they're against this bill, wait a second. So now you got infrastructure plus more funding for the police and a promise not to defund the police. So now you're going to vote for the bill? Are you going to vote for it?
The answer was no. Because
Can't hear you.
Just
yeah, of course, the answer is no.
Completely partisan. And of course, obviously, if this bill had been put forward by Donald Trump, they all
oh my God, they would love it.
gone along with it.
And by the way, I would have voted for it if it came from Trump or Biden. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I do agree, though, that it should be both. It needs to be human infrastructure as well.
Infrastructure bill, you're right to point out, it's like wholly inadequate. It does still contain some privatization schemes. I saw David Dan is writing about the broadband piece as like, continues indulging the broadband monopolists, and so not great on some of those points. But it also, some of the worst things did get stripped out. For example, they floated the idea of a gas tax early on, which is like just, completely hits the working class in a terrible and unconscionable way. So they did take out some of the worst pieces. So I agree with you. As long as you are going to actually get something approaching the $3.5 trillion deal, I would have also voted in favor of this. So game of chicken is where we are right now, and we'll see what happens if Nancy Pelosi holds the line for us. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.